So, the big question, do I like it? And the answer is yes. This is great. Hi everyone, I'm Katrina Walser from Oliphant Cat, and I am a knitting teacher and designer based in Sydney in Australia. If we haven't met before, it's nice to meet you, and I'm glad you found your way to my channel. And if you are returning, welcome back. So I have a yarn review for you today. So for a little bit of context, I lived in America for about 3.5 years, a little while ago. And since we've moved back, I've been trying really hard not to rely on the old brands that I used to buy over there and actually find yarn that I can source locally. So not necessarily yarn that's made here, but at least yarn that I can buy that ships from somewhere in the country. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. I think that shipping things from local stores is great for the environment, for one, because I just get the feeling that putting something on a truck, even if it's coming from interstate, has to be better for the environment than popping it on a plane and flying it over. It's also a lot faster. I am not a patient person, so the instant gratification is great, and just waiting for things to ship from overseas just feels especially dicey these days. And also, the more we buy yarn from Australia, the more yarn there will be here. I feel like everything's just sort of supply and demand. So if we just keep buying yarn from local stores, or from like local indie dyers, then there will just be more local stores and more indie dyers that pop up, which can only be a good thing. Plus, I had a friend say recently that you can't buy good wool or good yarn in Australia, which makes me sort of sad because I don't think that's true. So I've been doing a lot of research and just doing a lot of shopping, really, trying to find good yarn that you can buy in the country. And I figured I would share with you what I found. So the first thing we have is Born to Be Wool, which is a yarn from the Abbey brand that is a Spotlight exclusive brand. So here it is. I am going to review this in 2 parts. The first part, I'm just going to talk about it on its own merits and about like what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And then the second part I will talk about is how it compares to We Are Knitters, the wool, which I'm going to do because I specifically bought this to try and use it as a substitute for the wool from We Are Knitters, which also, if any of you are more used to using Crazy Sexy wool from Wool and the Gang, that's a very similar thing. All right, so let's get into it. So Born to Be Wool is 20 ply. I feel like when yarn is this chunky, the ply classifications just go out of the window a little bit. Spotlight don't even bother labeling what ply it is. So it's just super chunky. And it is 100% merino, plus there are 50 meters to an 100 gram ball. The yarn itself is single ply, which if you don't know what that means, it just means that there aren't like little strands that are twisted around each other to make up one big strand. It's just one single strand of wool. So the big question, do I like it? And the answer is yes. This is great. I don't want to review things on like a 10-point scale. I don't want to sit here and say it's got 4 stars or whatever, because I find it really hard to classify things like that. But do I like it? Yes. I like it enough that I am going to write a pattern for it, which we'll talk about next week. So what do I like about this sort of yarn, and this yarn in particular? For one, it is so quick to work up. Like so quick. So I was knitting this last night, and I think this was maybe like 3 or 4 hours max, and I got this much of a scarf out. So for scale, this is about 22 centimeters wide, 9 inches or so. And yeah, this is maybe a little less than half the scarf because I used 2 balls and the whole scarf is going to use up 5. So it's 2/5 of the scarf. And it was like, I got through that much in part of a night. It is really nice and soft. So when I first pulled it out of the bag, I was a little bit worried that it might be scratchy, but I mean, obviously I'm using it as a scarf and I'm totally fine with it. Yep, it's good. I am not that sensitive to wool though. So if you are quite sensitive to wool, maybe just try it first. Just buy yourself a ball before going all in. But I think it's pretty soft. I mean, it's merino, so you can't really go too wrong with it. They have a set of really nice colors, so I will take a screenshot of what their color range looks like. But I got, aside from this grey, which is a nice grey, but it's pretty sort of standard, I got this really beautiful purple, which I think they call lavender. And they also have a couple of nice blues and a couple of nice pinks, and there's like more than one neutral. So yeah, I think the colors are just really gorgeous. Plus, one of the really big draws is that it's just very affordable. So I'm used to seeing wool like this retailing for a lot more than what this does, which we'll talk about in a sec when I get to the comparison part. But this retails for 14 Australian a ball, just from Spotlight, and they seem to go on sale a lot. Like, I think since I've had my eye on this, they've had 40% off sales sort of every couple of months. And so I bought this for $8.40 a ball, which, I mean, it's pretty affordable at the end of the day for wool like this. So yes, I would definitely knit with it. I really do like it. The main complaint I have with it is that it is very, very splitty. So if you look at this strand here, it's just like really loose. So single ply wool, even though it's single ply, even though it's only one strand, I found that different single ply wools still come at different sort of amounts of twist. Like if you just twisted this up like this, right? I've seen single ply wool that looks more like that. But this wool is just really loose. There's just like barely any twist in it. So it's almost like roving to some extent. So it's really easy to accidentally stick your needle just like bang into the middle of the strand as you knit. And I did take some footage of myself knitting this scarf. So I'll put a little bit up on the screen now just to show you. I do just sort of snag the edge of it every so often. So you've just got to be a little bit more careful with how you knit with it. And also, just because it's so loose, I do worry that it would pill a little bit. So this is not a problem that is exclusive to this yarn. I find that it's a problem with these sorts of like chunky yarns, chunky single ply yarns in particular. Like, I know that Wool and the Gang and We Are Knitters have made a whole business on advertising that you can make jumpers out of this sort of stuff. And I just don't know how anyone does it, honestly, because I think that as soon as you apply any amount of friction to it, it's going to felt and pill all over the shop. So I personally wouldn't make a jumper out of this or anything that's going to like, rub under the underarms or anything like that. But I'm totally cool with using it for accessories like scarves and beanies and stuff. And the other thing that I noticed as I was knitting with this is that it made me sneeze. Which sounds silly, but I think because it's so fuzzy that as you knit, like quite a few fibers just sort of float off it as you go. So I have definitely worked with wool before where I've been knitting and I've stood up and like you can see just like shards of wool or cotton or whatever all over you. And I didn't notice with that, so it's not so bad, but I think it was shedding enough that it made me sneeze, which was just sort of funny. And then the only other thing that I noticed is that there were some strange color slubs, I would call them, that were hidden in the yarn. I found a couple of random patches that were like just white or just black, which in a grey yarn is fine, to be honest. Like, I'm used to wool having some variation. It's sort of nice to some extent because it means that it's real. But the weird part was that there were some red fibers that were just like randomly in the yarn. It might take me a little while to find them. I mean, like, it wasn't so much of a problem that it's standing out heaps because I can't even find it now. Yeah, no, can't find it. So, it's not a big deal, just something that I noticed. So yes, would definitely recommend. I really do like this yarn and I'm really glad and sort of pleasantly surprised. I was not expecting much, to be honest, when I got it because it was so affordable, but it's lovely and it's decent and I really like it. So, as a comparison to the wool, I don't have any wool on me, so I can't show it to you to compare, but from what I remember, this yarn knits up a lot thicker than the We Are Knitters wool does. So when I initially knit up this scarf, I designed it for the wool from We Are Knitters, and I got 9 stitches to 10 centimeters on 15mm needles. So the Abbey Road wool also recommends 15mm needles, but I found that when I knitted up on 15mm, the stitch definition was quite different. The fabric was a lot looser than the original design that I had, and it was also way fatter, like a lot fatter. I can't exactly remember what gauge I got with it, but I think for the same stitch pattern, it was something like 6 or 7 stitches to 10 centimeters. So it was quite different. It made the scarf really, really wide. So I went down to 12mm needles, and it ended up being more comparable, but even at 12mm, this knits up fatter. So I think at the moment I've got about 8.5 stitches to 10 centimeters, which is almost 9, but it's still a little bit fatter. So that's not a good or a bad thing, just a difference. Just keep in mind that if you do try and buy this to substitute in for a pattern that was written for the wool or for Crazy Sexy Wool from Wool and the Gang, that you're going to have to do a bit of a gauge swatch and experiment a little bit with getting gauge and like what sort of fabric you're actually going to like from it. In terms of things that are better about the We Are Knitters wool, they definitely have a bigger color range. So I feel like WAC and Wool and the Gang, a large part of their like marketing and their draw is their range of colors. They have so many colors now. And there are all these marshmallow colors, and there are unicorn colors, and there are like rainbow colors, and just variegated and spotty and solid and all sorts. So they have so many different colors. So the color range obviously is a lot more limited for the Abbey Road yarn, even though I do like the colors that they have. And from what I was saying earlier with the splitting, like with the fact that I kept accidentally sticking my needle into the middle of the yarn, it is definitely harder to work with. It's not so bad that you can't use it, obviously. You just have to be more careful with this than you would with the wool from We Are Knitters. And then in terms of comparison for the quality, they're not so different that it's noticeable. So I feel like if you handed me a ball and I like held them both, I still feel like the wool would be nicer, but it wasn't so much nicer that I have some like very clear memory of it being gorgeous and amazing and I loved working with it or anything. I just remember it being fine. It was good fat wool. And this also is good fat wool that is still soft enough to wear as a scarf. So the big draw though about this compared to the Wool and the Gang or the We Are Knitters wool is the price. So this is so much more affordable, guys. And given how little difference it feels like there is in the quality, it's so worth it. If you look at the Spotlight website, this stuff retails for $14 a ball. And if you go look up the wool from We Are Knitters, it's $34 for one ball, which is pretty expensive. And you do get a little bit more wool because the ball is bigger from We Are Knitters. But I did all the math and I figured out how much the 2 yarns are per meter or per 100 meters. And at the end of the day, this is like 60% cheaper. So to put that into concrete terms, talking about actual projects, if I made this scarf in the wool from We Are Knitters, it would cost me $102 because it takes about 3 balls. And if I made it today, which I am doing from the Abbey Road Born to Be wool, it cost me $70 at full price. And on an even larger scale, one of the other designs I have that I originally wrote for the wool from We Are Knitters is my Cozy Sunday Fade blanket. And that takes 10 balls of the WAC wool. And they do like a bundle. You can get a 10 ball bundle. So one of those for the whole blanket would cost $272 Australian. And I did the math again and figured out that to make the same blanket, you'd need 14 balls of this stuff. And that would put you back $196. So again, a lot cheaper. And that's a full price. Once you take sales into consideration and stuff, you can get it for a lot less. And that's the review. So I hope you find this helpful if you've been looking for a substitute for the whack wool, or even if you've just had an eye on this yarn in and of itself. And if you have worked with this before, I'd really love to hear from you. I'll leave a comment to let me know what you thought about it, whether you think it was worth it or if you liked it or not. I'd really love to hear from other knitters who have tried it. And next week I will be talking about the actual scarf itself, how you make it, and exactly all the materials you need and stuff. So if you are interested in seeing how this knits up, definitely come back next week. And the easiest way to remember is to subscribe so that YouTube just shows you the video once it's available. And the other thing that I did want to mention is that this is from last week's video, but I am running a giveaway at the moment. If you are in Australia and you want to join in with a giveaway, I will put a link to exactly where the details about the giveaway are in last week's video down in the description box below, and you can take a look at that. Unfortunately, it's not open internationally, but if you do want to join in the fun and you are from outside of Australia, there is a second part of the giveaway running on Instagram, so you can go check it out over there. Yeah, I'm just very thankful to everyone for supporting me and subscribing and liking and everything and stuff. So I wanted to give back a little bit. And that's it for this week. So thank you very much. If you are looking for me or you want to chat, then I am Oliphant Cat on Instagram. That's the easiest place to try and get in contact. But otherwise, I post videos every Thursday, so I will see you next week. Bye!